Once upon a time, there was a piece of wood. It was not an expensive piece of wood, far from it. Just a common block of firewood, one of those short, thick, solid logs that were put on the fire in winter to make cold rooms cosy and warm and sustain one's faith in Western democracy. I do not know how this really happened, yet the fact remains that one fine day, this piece of wood found itself in the land of the free and the home of the high moral ground, the White House. The owner of this house was a travelling puppeteer with the curious name W. Or maybe not so curious, because he always found it difficult to say anything original. W was a renowned string puller with an insatiable appetite for global expansion, so in finding the log, he was filled with joy.
This has come in the nick of time. I desperately need another puppet for my World Theater, particularly my Iraq show. I'll carve myself a new little friend, one who'll star as a righteous fighter against those pesky axes of evil.
W grasped his tools of trade quickly to peel off the bark and shape the wood, allowing himself to be guided by the Book of Intelligent Design.
Bald patch here, shifty eyes, sprouty eyebrows, couple of gummy lips, clean white choppers, some strings. Pretty good.
Growing steadily in confidence, little Johnny began to talk.
The government's position remains that we were advised that children were thrown overboard.
W thought he noticed that the nose of his new creation had wiggled just a bit. But then he remembered that he was always misinterpreting things.
The Australian government knows that Iraq still has chemical and biological weapons and that Iraq wants to develop nuclear weapons.
This time, little Johnny's nose not only wiggled, it grew. W rubbed his eyes and thought to himself,
I must be working too hard. I'm getting tired and seeing things. Better paint my new friend, leave him to dry and get some sleep. It'll be all better in the morning.
So he sat the smiling little puppet on the shelf to dry and strode out across the rose garden and home to bed, where Barbie was waiting for him, as she always did. Meanwhile, as little Johnny sat waiting for his image to dry, he practiced looking important and sincere.
My fellow Americans, Australians, be alert but not alarmed. We did not invade Iraq for the oil.
Little Johnny's face began to ache. He sighed and looked out of the little window at the night sky bright with star spangles. And he picked out the brightest star and wished upon it with all his might that great things might come to small puppets like him. Gradually, his star grew brighter and brighter and seemed to come closer and closer. It was the most beautiful and very famous blue fairy.
So, my little puppet, you wish to be a leader in your own right, a master puppeteer like W. Well, I'd better test your worthiness. Read what it says on my pedestal. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So, little Johnny, tell me honestly, have you been supporting your huddled masses?
Oh yes, of course. I've used lots of taxpayers' money to scare and bribe, protect and support all my little Aussie battlers.
And what has eased their burden most?
Oh, undoubtedly the greater flexibility that comes with my AWAs and work choices.
And have you embraced the tempest-tossed and homeless?
Oh yes, dear fairy. Those tossed overboard, I've offered the most expensive accommodation on sun-drenched Pacific Islands.
And have you planned how to keep my lamp bright and stop rising sea levels from lapping at my pedestal?
Absolutely, dear fairy. I haven't been asleep on climate change. In fact, I've put everything into the safe, responsible hands of the Coal Council of Australia.
At this last lie, little Johnny's nose became longer than ever. The fairy stood looking at him and laughing.
Why do you laugh?
Little Johnny asked her, worried now at the sight of his growing nose.
I am laughing at your lies.
How do you know I'm lying?
Lies, my boy, as another fairy once famously said, are known in a moment. There are two kinds of lies. Lies with short legs and lies with long noses. Yours, just now, happen to have long noses.
Little Johnny, not knowing where to hide his shame, tried to rush from the room. But the fairy dropped her torch, grabbed his nose, and tossed him like a caber right out the window. A mournful howl reverberated around the White House as little Johnny sailed through the air, then land, nose first, in W and Barbie's rose garden, where before one could say Kyoto, he grew into a very nice carbon offset.